With many people in Afghanistan demanding that U.S. troops stationed there withdraw, the Afghan president was warned that the country could collapse within 6 months without Washington support. RT Samir Khan has more.
Well, America's longest war has been raging on for 16 years now. It's survived 4 different administrations, yet there's been no change. Let's quickly go into some details. Well, the number of U.S. casualties in Afghanistan, 2,408 killed. And the cost, well, over $1 trillion has been spent on the military campaign and $117 billion spent on reconstruction. General Nicholson and President Ghani pretty much criticized the war in Afghanistan, that it's lasted this long and the U.S. has spent trillions of dollars, but the country remains as dangerous and unstable as ever. This is something that both General Nicholson and President Ghani agree on. Well, General Nicholson spoke about suicide bombers carrying out attacks, even in Kabul, admitting that the capital is an easy target for suicide bombings.
How easy is it to infiltrate the city, especially one this big?
Yeah, right now, it's easier than we would like.
The president said that the country is under siege, saying that 21 different international terrorist groups are operating in Afghanistan, which include suicide bombers. Attacks are being carried out in Kabul, despite it being known as the safest city in Afghanistan.
We will not be able to support our army for 6 months without U.S. support and U.S. capabilities.
It's also worth mentioning that on top of the problems both General Nicholson and President Ghani brought up, the Taliban still control 40% of the country. And in these 16 years of war, the Taliban didn't really lose that much territory. And in some regions, they even strengthened their control. So Afghanistan looks like a stalemate. American troops are still there, but they're unable to change the situation. But if they leave, everything will collapse. So the U.S. has dedicated so much money, resources, and troops to the cause, but nothing seems to have worked. And it doesn't look like there's going to be any change in policy either.
Middle East military analyst Kamal Alam says the crisis needs a regional solution, but Washington won't resort to that option because of its policies.
The majority of the country, it's far worse than it was when the US and NATO came in. So one could say 70% of the country, which is rural, it's definitely been a negative for them. NATO at their peak had 150,000 soldiers about 5 years ago, and they couldn't turn the tide. So militarily, the US forces and NATO are far less now on the ground, and they're up against it. The Taliban are taking more territory. There are more non-state actors like ISIS involved as well. So I think for the US, it'll be very difficult to turn the tide. The big solution lies in working regionally. At the moment, the US is not working too closely with China or Russia, Iran or Pakistan. Afghanistan needs a regional solution. At the moment, the US and NATO don't have any answers to it. So the US is isolated as far as the region goes. At the same time, the national unity government of Afghanistan has no unity there. You've got the different ethnicities of Afghanistan at each other's throats. So it looks pretty grim. There's more hope for Iraq and Syria than there is in Afghanistan for the US.